Welcome to another edition of the Scruffy Ginger Podcast. I'm your host and your Scruffy Ginger, Matt Graves. This is episode 6, and I am so excited about today's podcast. We have my buddy Lucas on here. I know we were going to try to get Ryan on for the Browns game. That didn't happen. I think he's a little scared little bitch, is why he didn't come on. We have Lucas, though, brave enough to step into the lion's den himself. Lucas, welcome to the pod.
Well, Matt, thanks for having me. First of all, I just got to say it's September 12th. I'm not sure when you're dropping this podcast, but it is your birthday. So I wanted to wish you a happy birthday and kind of make a comment, too. I mean, if you're talking about people being scared of bitch, I guess it takes one to know one. So I don't know if you should be calling other people out yet.
Okay, well, we'll see how this goes. I was going to call you out if you did not mention that it was my birthday. So
I've been waiting all day.
You're off the hook so far. So, anyways, wanted to open up the podcast because we had a little phone conversation. Let's just start by introducing why you specifically are on the podcast right now. The Titans and Colts play this Sunday, and Lucas happens to unfortunately be a Colts fan. And we had some hilarious news happen. What is it, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago? It seems like forever. But it just doesn't stop getting any better. But let's start with the obvious way to start this podcast. Andrew Luck, man. Andrew Luck retired. And I know we already had a little conversation about it, but bring us back to that day, where you were, what your initial thoughts were. Let's just hear kind of your take on that.
It's a day I'll never forget, Matt. I was pissed drunk in Chicago at Slugger's Bar in Wrigleyville at a buddy's bachelor party. And I come out of the bathroom and my buddies say, hey, these girls are from Indianapolis. I'm thinking, oh, they're going to try to hook me up with these girls. And that was not the case, unfortunately. They said, hey, tell him what you told us. Like, oh, yeah, Andrew Luck's retiring. And I'm kind of like, that's a pretty good one. You know, I'm pretty drunk. I'm thinking they're just messing with me. And they're like, no, seriously, look at that TV over there. And keep in mind, this is the same preseason game that we're playing the Bears. And sure enough, it's Andrew Luck on the sideline, little scroll bar saying that Andrew Luck's retiring. I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, this is the most, blindsiding news. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. If it was like, Adam Vinatieri's retiring, that's something that you can put two and two together and be like, oh, the guy's kind of old. But not your quarterback who's supposed to be like your franchise QB. He's finally – I mean, he was injured at the time. He was obviously not playing, but supposed to be healthy for this season. So you're kind of just wondering what's going on. And obviously the news comes out after the game where he's saying he's just not mentally in it anymore. And obviously we can get into a little bit more about the retirement if you'd like to, but definitely shocked. And I think obviously the fans that were there were shocked as well, booing him off the field. And I would just like to say about that, a lot of the national media has been giving Indianapolis Colts fans a lot of grief for booing him off the field, which I don't think is fair at all. I mean, it was a very much an emotional response. I think a lot of Colts fans have backtracked on that, saying that was just getting caught up in the moment. But Colts fans aren't bad fans because they booed him off the field. It's just they're heated in the moment, and kind of the timing for Luck was bad, and it got leaked at the wrong time. But I mean, yeah, definitely shocking news, and something that I don't really think anybody's prepared for as a fan of any team, that your franchise quarterback retires a month before the season when he's in his 20s.
Yeah, I mean, not even a month. I mean, what was that? Well, we played the Bears last, so that was like, what, the third week or something like that? So
yeah,
it was like
it would
a couple
have been.
weeks.
Yeah, it would have been towards the end there, middle part of August. So I mean, we're talking about literally. As the clock's about to strike midnight, and we're finishing up the preseason, going into the regular season. So it was our, I think it was second to last, maybe last preseason game. I don't really follow preseason too much just because there's nothing much that goes on. Well, we thought there was nothing that goes on until Andrew Luck retired. But that was just a big shock. And, kind of looking forward, and this kind of we can maybe, I don't know, segue into that Titans game. But I was really more so just at first pissed, and then obviously as I think about it, I started thinking about Jacoby Brissett. We talked about this the last time we talked about him taking over the reins as a QB, and I was kind of at first nervous, but now I'm more excited. And that Chargers game proved a lot to think about Brissett, but I thought we were in a good place. A couple days later after that.
Yeah, it's funny how quickly that fan base turned on their franchise quarterback. I think it says a lot about those fans.
No, it doesn't. No,
but
it doesn't.
they're you know what they are great people. Even though they booed him off the field. So
look, you're just upset because 2 years ago, your all's biggest offseason story was your uniform color was changing, and we actually have news happening about the Colts because people care about us. But it's whatever.
Are you saying that you would rather have your franchise quarterback leave than just do a little uniform change?
I think you all would actually maybe be a little bit better team if your all's quote unquote franchise quarterback decided to retire. I don't know why everybody's on the Marcus Mariota train, but whatever.
I did. I mean, did you watch the week one?
Congratulations, you beat the bad news Browns.
The bad news Browns. I overly hyped.
Look, I'm not. We can get into that. I'm not sold on the Browns until they actually do something. Their fan base is all hype about them right now, and they've got a good roster right now. But until they actually make the playoffs, there's nothing that they've got going for them currently. I mean, yes, they have a good roster. That's probably the only thing. But you have to make the playoffs before we can actually say that you are something as a team or a franchise. Right now, they're not the laughing stock that has fallen to the Raiders, but the Browns are still, I would say, the laughing stock because they come out, they get embarrassed by the Titans in week one after all this hype about them. And, the story from that game that we're talking about is OBJ wearing a watch that's like valued over $100,000, or $20,000, whatever it was. But that was the main headline coming out of that game.
Yeah, that was pretty insane. I mean, it just that fan base. I don't know if I'm ever going to understand their actions. I mean, yes, we handed it to them. There were very few people that were not surprised, and it was like 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and the bridge that leads up to the stadium flooded with people exiting. I mean, it was shoulder to shoulder across the entire bridge for the majority of the fourth quarter left. I mean, I guess is the Monday night game, is that at Cleveland or is that New York? It doesn't really matter. If it's at home, I'm curious to see how many people actually show up.
Oh, it'll be packed, I'm sure. I think the biggest thing though is that's a game that the Browns are squarely in until the fourth quarter. I mean, you have to admit that too, that was a game that looked like it was going to be a good one down to the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter, it's like a switch kicks on for the Titans, and the Browns and you got to put that loss squarely on Baker Mayfield's shoulders too. I mean, you can't throw 3 interceptions and expect to keep your team in the game. And of course, Mariota made some good plays as well. He looked great throwing down the field. Derrick Henry, though he only had 80 rush yards, I mean, that's a guy that scares me coming into this week. And I think it scares any opposing defense when you got a guy that's that big and that strong of a back and that quick of a back with that kind of size. I thought early on, you don't like that first drive where they're going down the field, moving the ball really easily, and then it sputters out for a field goal. But outside of that, they had a pretty dang good offensive day, other than a couple of sacks that they gave up. Gave up 4 sacks to Mariota. But, I mean, all kidding aside, I think Titans fans have to be pretty happy with the way they played, especially opening up on the road against the Browns, who have been so hyped in the offseason.
Yeah, opening up with a win on the road is definitely huge, and coming back home and getting another W this week is just going to be, ideally the only undefeated team in the division still, 2-0, and I really can't see any reason why that's not going to happen. The Colts, okay, no, you did give the Titans some love there, which I'm not saying I'm surprised, but let's talk about the Colts-Chargers game real quick. So it goes to overtime. Was it double overtime or just normal? Just one?
Well, there's no double overtime in the NFL, but
God damn it, Lucas. You're right. So
this ain't college football. Colts actually play pro ball unlike the Titans, but
It's one of those things that I'll never get. It's not that I don't understand it. It's just one of those things that it seems to always catch me off guard whenever I find out like the Detroit Cardinals game that they tied. No matter how much I know that that's a rule, it still catches me off guard. But yeah, let's from what I saw from the Colts against the Chargers, the Colts. I mean, the guys that you want to perform came out and did what they did. I didn't see every throw from Jacoby. From what I saw 2 years ago, I don't know if anything's changed really. He's more of a game manager than a guy that's going to be a gunslinger throughout the game. But he'll take his chances. But the two guys, correct me if I'm wrong, that you just need to perform week in and week out are Ty and Mac. And if they do well, you're in it. You got a shot. Your defense isn't bad. I mean, the Colts are the only we'll talk about the Texans later, but the Colts are still, even without Andrew Luck, a lot of people still consider them the favorite, which is hilarious to me, given the Titans' performance. But, they still got to make their money, and the Colts get more clicks than the Titans do. Mac had, $1.25 or something like that? Or
So let me run through some stats here. So we'll start with Jacoby Brissett, 21 for 27, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. And I would agree with you. It's funny, you used to rail on Alex Smith for being a game manager. I was like, I would never want him as quarterback. He's a game manager. And now it's like, I guess it's more so for us because the situation could be far worse. I'm like, hey, at least we have a game manager that I'm not that worried about. But then Marlon Mack, 24 rushes, 174 yards, which is the most by Colts running backs since 2004. And, even looking at the defensive side of the ball, you touched on those offensive players that we need to be consistent. But kind of the calling card for the Colts last year was something that you don't really call a calling card is defense. And we've got so many young guys there, like Darius Leonard had 8 tackles. He led the league last year in tackles. And then Malik Hooker had an OBJ-esque interception in the end zone, one-handed. And I think where the big difference in that game was special teams. Vinatieri missed a PAT and 2 field goals. Otherwise, we're talking about a 1-0 Colts team heading into Tennessee in this week 2. But, you're right. I mean, the big thing for the Colts over the past, let's call it decade, 15 years, has been the lack of a consistent rusher. And so it's, can Marlon Mack be a consistent rusher? I think we saw some of that last year, especially towards the end of the season. He started stepping up when they started going on that little win streak. But, he doesn't have to have 174 every game. But you can't have, your quarterback, especially now that Luck's gone, you can't have Jacoby Brissett going out there and throwing 40, 50 times like Luck did. Andrew Luck is not coming back to that door, and Jacoby Brissett, if you want him to be successful, you've got to be able to balance your offensive load with your running backs. And like you said, T.Y. Hilton, I know that he's torn up the Titans several times in the past, and it'll be interesting to see if Jacoby Brissett's able to expose those same weaknesses. If he's able to take advantage. I thought that because even looking at one of the things I have written down here is how will the secondary do for Tennessee against Brissett? They obviously looked very good against Baker Mayfield. It's going to be a lot about getting that pressure up front to make, Jacoby Brissett hurry in the pocket or get outside that pocket. And then your secondary takes over and tries to see if they can make some plays. And I think that's going to be one of the big matchups to watch is how does Brissett, although, he does have, people don't give him enough credit. He does have a year of experience under his belt with the Colts. And the last time he came in, he was coming straight in 4 weeks before the season, had to learn the playbook. He knows the playbook now. He knows the personnel now. So this isn't a new situation for him. I think it's more so how does he handle the pressure now that he is the guy? And, it's not that, I think last time he comes and expects maybe that's going to be a rough season. Now it's about how do I hold this all together because they still have so much talent around him, defensively, offensively. How do I make the most of that? And I think this will be a big test for Brissett. Week 1, you kind of get those jitters, but this is now a division rivalry game on the road. And to even the crowd. Everybody knows you go to play the Chargers in Los Angeles, it's going to be at least half of the stadium is going to be still your fans. That's not going to be the case in Tennessee. So how do you do with that, and how do you do your best in hostile territory?
Yeah, going back to what you said real quick about the lack of consistency from the rusher with the Colts. Was it Joseph Adai? Was that the last one that was like the most consistent rusher week in and week out, or was there someone since then?
I mean, Joseph Adai was on that Super Bowl team. I wouldn't really have called him a consistent rusher. I mean, he had more high moments than we've had probably in the last, since him. But at the same time, it's also, I'd say, Edgerrin James, and now we're talking back early 2000s, even before that Super Bowl. He wasn't part of that Super Bowl team. So we're talking at least 13 years or more since the last really consistent, what I like to call a guy that's going to maybe eventually be in your Ring of Honor or be a guy that you talk about after the fact. And the only reason that Joseph Adai is getting talked about is because of the Super Bowl. Otherwise, he's just another, guy that was a part of the team for a few years. But I'm hoping that, at the end of the day, we're having those conversations about Marlon Mack. He obviously, like I said, had a good finish to last year. But, yeah, I'd say we're looking at Edgerrin James being the last consistent back the Colts even had.
Yeah, James came to mind. I obviously he's a legend with the Colts, but, which trying to think of another back that was good enough, worth the conversation. Side note real quick. I hear some pots clanging around. What the fuck are you up to right now?
I'm cooking dinner. I don't want to say that I'm not undivided attention for you, but a boy's got to eat. I'm making some crab pasta. It's what I call the Lucas Corley special. You look inside your pantry and your fridge and you see what two things may pair together well, and you make the most of it.
Crab pasta.
Yeah, I've got some crab meat, and then I've got some spaghetti that I'm about to drain. And then I'm going to put the crab inside the spaghetti and just eat it. If I have to pinch my nose so I don't taste it, whatever. But
is that, are you like, what's the sauce? Like butter? What are you doing?
Yeah, a little butter. And then I might put some like spices or seasoning in there. I'm just kind of winging it as we go. So if you have any suggestions, I'll ask. But currently draining the noodles. But continue.
Yeah, the first suggestion is don't put crab meat in there.
Well, we're already past that stage, so. But anyways.
Well, you'll have to tell me how that is.
Yeah.
So obviously you talked about T.Y. Hilton, who I fucking hate for reasons that you touched on, is that, he's a ghost. If he has like 1,000 yards a season, like, it seems like 300 of them are against the Titans throughout the year. So it's like, what the fuck happens? I guess it's similar to us just having the Jags' number. It's just we always destroy them. So I don't know. Whenever you guys play us, or rather we guys play you, Ty is always someone that I just assume he's going to have a crazy game, so I just let it happen. Or when it does happen, it doesn't faze me anymore. It's kind of just expected. But I think you touched on Derrick Henry. I mean, the 85 yards, but also not forgetting the 75-yard dump-off pass that led to a touchdown. That's
right. Yeah.
Derrick Henry is going.
He's the X factor.
He's going to wear you all down, just like he does everybody else. And you guys just need to make sure that you go up early enough and, well, I was going to say high enough, but you can score, 2 or 3 scores ahead before the fourth quarter, because that's just what everyone's falling for. Or not falling for, but, submitting to is fourth quarter Derrick Henry. No one's going to tackle him at that point.
Well, I think too that, like you said, it is going to be a battle of X factors. I actually have this being a very low scoring game. I've got my prediction, and you're gonna laugh. I've actually got Tennessee 17, Colts 10. I mean, I think this is, as much as I want to give the Titans crap, this is a different Titans team. And I think if the Colts do win, it means that Mariota had a bad day through the air. I don't think that they're going to have trouble. I don't think Derrick Henry's going to have trouble against the Colts defense. Secondary, though, I think is where we're going to be strongest at. I mean, our line's better. I think defensive line is still where we have some work to do. But if we're going to win this game, it's going to be mistakes for Mariota. And I think you would agree with that, too, that Mariota is not a consistent quarterback all the time, and so if he has a bad game against our secondary, we've got guys like Malik Hooker back there, Darius Leonard. Obviously, I've mentioned him with the linebacking core, but Kenny Moore at corner, and it's a very young defense, but I think a very talented defense for the Colts. And yeah, I hope that the Colts defense comes out and can maybe maybe get some pressure against Mariota as well and force him to make some of those bad plays. But, ultimately, too, I'm very interested to see. It's not something that people talk about as being an X factor usually, but after last week, you have to bring it up. Special teams. How's Adam Vinatieri going to come back after making those, or rather missing those, the PAT and the 2 field goals? I'm not. Everybody else in the Colts fan base is saying, "Oh, it's time for him to retire." I'm thinking, this guy has been the greatest kicker of all time, and yes, I know he's getting old. But one bad game doesn't mean that it's time for the guy to retire. If he comes back next week against Tennessee and he kicks a 50-yard field goal for the win as time expires, everybody's going to be saying, "Oh, I'm so glad he didn't retire." I mean, you can't get on a guy after one bad game.
Yeah, no, I mean, Adam, he's gonna hit his shots. I mean, I'm not. Again, I kind of expect that if he's lining up anywhere under 50 yards, I just kind of assume it's going through the uprights. So, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. If he continues to miss, I think you do kind of start to worry. If he he missed two field goals and an extra point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if he misses.
If he misses, I'd say if he misses an easy a gimme. Now, again, if he goes out and he misses a 52-yarder, people are going to still be calling, "Oh, he's too old. He used to make those." Well, guess what? There's a lot of kickers that are going to miss 52-yarders. I mean, I know they're pro kickers, but you got to give them a break. Now, if he goes out there and misses a chip shot 20-yarder, yeah, I'm going to be a little worried at that point if it starts becoming a consistent issue. But one game, I mean, I'm not that worried. Did it cost us a game? Sure. But, I mean, you can't – and he even said it's 100% on him. But going back to it's like, okay, the NFL, it's a coin toss. The Colts have all the momentum going into that. They've got, 15 straight points unanswered to come back. And then, okay, the Chargers win the coin toss. And, our defense had some chances to get out of there, but they couldn't. So they scored a touchdown, game over. Our offense, who's red hot at that time, doesn't even get a chance to get on the field. So that's something I'm not really worried about. Yes, Vinatieri, if he makes those field goals, it's a different game. Maybe we win. But it's not one of those situations where I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago we opened up also in LA against the Rams, and we just got our shit stomped. I mean, it was an embarrassing loss, and that was a season I'm thinking, oh, this can be a long one. But anytime you can go in and play against a guy like Phillip Rivers who, even though lack of a Super Bowl, I still think has got a Hall of Fame caliber career just with the numbers he's put up and how good of a consistent quarterback he's been, how durable he's been. Anytime you can go and play on the road against a quarterback like that and, come out with an overtime loss and, still came back and looked good in the loss. Not many people can say they look good in a loss. I'm going to be okay with that, especially for week one. Yes, every game matters in the NFL, but the season's just beginning.
Yeah, no, I mean, you guys definitely came out and played some ball. It just didn't, three things didn't go your way, and those were the kicks. So, what's interesting to me is that the AFC South, I mean, with the exception of the Colts in the division, have basically been the laughingstock of the NFL for close to a decade now. I mean, the Texans had a couple of years in there where they were contending, and you could say that they're still the favorite. Some people are still giving them the nod as being the favorite in the division this year. But I mean, you take a look at the Colts going up against Phillip Rivers, a very good Chargers team, losing in overtime. The Texans, going up against the Saints who are contending for Super Bowls every year. It seems like, and they lose to a 58-yard field goal with time expiring, and the Titans go out and absolutely annihilate the Browns, who had the most hype throughout the entire season. So the division is now all of a sudden one of the, I would say, more feared divisions in the NFL this year.
I would say yes and no. I think we'll know how feared they are by week 5. I mean, depending on some of these results. I think that the Texans, the big question is still, can they protect Deshaun Watson? I mean, that's been the issue, is that they don't have a good offensive line right now. And as someone that is a Colts fan, I know all about bad offensive lines. And they don't have a good offensive line. Titans look good. Jacksonville.
So you're saying that we're being held back by a dumb fucking team? Is that what I'm hearing?
Jacksonville, it's just, I mean, it's Foles is down there now, correct? So we've got, I mean, at that point, they're the biggest question mark, I think, in the division. I mean, I think the Colts have got some questions around them, but again, what's funny is a couple weeks ago, before Andrew Luck retires, you've got ESPN that's, surveyed all of their sports writers for the NFL, and the Colts are the number one team in terms of future success over the next 5 years. Who's got the brightest future? And Luck retires, and now I'd like to see if they redid that, what they would put us at. We still have a lot of young talent. That's one of the reasons I'm still optimistic about maybe not winning the division. I'm not on that train. I still think we can get a wild card. But that's the biggest question, is the quarterback position is the most important in football. I still like Jacoby Brissett, but what is his ceiling? And not really just his ceiling, but how high can the rest of the team lift him up with the offensive weapons he has around him? You mentioned T.Y. Hilton, Marlon Mack. We'll see about Mack's consistency. But then the defense, which has just been completely non-existent. And even you got to give Chris Ballard a lot of credit, the GM for the Colts. Marlon Mack is not rushing for 174 yards without Chris Ballard. He is obviously, GMs don't get enough credit, but the way he's drafted compared to Ryan Grigson before him has completely changed this team. I mean, Ryan Grigson's offensive line drafting was questionable. I mean, you're talking about years where we wouldn't draft an offensive lineman until after the 7th round. And, replacement players that were it's a rotating cast of characters every week. Now we actually have a good O-line, and you're starting to see, last year the Colts didn't give up very many sacks for the first time in a while. You have Marlon Mack actually getting some running lanes to run through. And, we're not running for 2 yards and getting stopped at the line. We're running for 6 and putting ourselves in second down and short situations. So, give Ballard some credit for what he's been able to build there. I think the biggest question marks around the AFC South and why I think they have a lot of potential is because they do have so much young talent throughout the league as a whole. I mean, all of your quarterbacks, Jacoby Brissett, I believe this is his, I want to say 4th. Well, I know he's with the Patriots. I want to say 4th, maybe 5th year at the most in the league. Deshaun Watson, this is what, his third or 4th? I think, 3rd year in the league. He was injured in his rookie year. You got Marcus Mariota, young quarterback, and Nick Foles, obviously not the youngest quarterback, but a guy that's won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. Granted, it was with Carson Wentz's team, but still won a Super Bowl, which no one can take that away from him. So it's. No, but
you know what you could take away though? You could take away a clavicle. That might diminish his game for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that and the biggest question marks around this league are no one really knows, because I think there's so much even talent, I guess the best way to put it, just even ability on all these teams. And everybody's got their holes somewhere, and everybody's got their strengths in different places too. I do think it's a wide open division race. I would say right now I would be leaning towards the Titans with the Colts as the wild card. I think this game I'd like to. I mean, this is a big game for both teams, and normally you don't have that happening in week 2. This is going to be the game that if the Colts go in and win this, and let's say for some strange reason, I think if they won it, it would be a low scoring, win at a field goal 13-10 kind of game. But let's say the Colts for some reason go in and they smack them around early in the season and it's like 42-20. You're going to have people that are going to be saying, okay, this is a completely different Colts team than we thought. And granted, they'll play again later in the year. But if the Colts sweep the season series, I mean, I think you and I would both have to agree, depending on the records at that point, you would assume that the Colts have a good record. That, I don't want to say I'm predicting that, because that's not the case. I'm just saying that there's a lot of question marks surrounding this division. And I don't think anybody here has got a Super Bowl caliber team. I don't even know if any of the teams from this division can go to the AFC Championship. But I would agree that's going to be a very competitive division this year. And I'm excited for once about division games, because that seems like it's a pretty even league.
Yeah, no, I think the three teams in the division have a lot going for them this year, and yeah, I think week 2 is going to be a huge uh, step for either the Titans or the Colts. Um, but let's just be honest. I mean, it's going to be for the Titans, and if we
Cheeky
come back
bastard.
home, if we come, if you guys come to Nashville and we smack you guys around, kind of like the unlikely scenario that you just played out.
Mm-hmm.
The Titans automatically become one of the most intriguing and feared teams in the NFL. Nothing will change my mind. I mean, it's funny with my fantasy team. It just so happened the way I traded out of the first round, I ended up the best running back available when I was picking was Derrick Henry, which people thought I was just stroking the Titans. And then later on, the best tight end available, it wasn't, the first 3 or 4 tight ends taken, but the best tight end available was Delaney Walker. And I mean, those two alone put up like 40-something points between the two of them. And then I know they're not going to do that week in and week out, but Delaney Walker has not slowed down. Cameron Wake has not slowed down, given that they're both in their mid to late 30s. And that's something to be, something to definitely take a look at if you're from one of the other teams in the division or across the NFL. You brought up Chris Ballard. He's definitely done a lot for that team. But let's be honest, man. How many players have sucked him off, dude? How many players?
No comment. I'm not going to stoop to your level because, one, I want to go back to your point about the tight ends for a second. But Chris Ballard, you know what? Maybe his players should be sucking him off because he's put together such a great team that, I mean, Indianapolis when under the Ryan Grigson dark cloud, it was almost like, again, putting together a fantasy roster because you only have offensive players, and you have one defense. But it was, oh, hey, here's a really flashy wide receiver. Ryan, we already have wide receiver. Oh, I'm going to get the wide receiver. We need hey, let me get this really flashy. And I mean, he just, every pick he made had people scratching their heads. It's like, hey, we need an offensive lineman. He's like, okay, let me go ahead and get this cornerback sounds good. And it's like, no, offensive lineman. So, I mean, Chris Ballard actually has experience. I mean, if you go back, there's articles out there about how much of a laughingstock Grigson is in the NFL. But I want to get back to your point about tight ends if I can for just a second, because Delaney Walker is the second X factor I had. I mean, 5 receptions week 1 for a tight end is pretty good. And on the other side for the Colts, when Andrew Luck was there, I mean, Eric Ebron led the league in tight end touchdowns last season, and only 2 receptions by Colts tight ends overall in week 1. And so I'm interested to see how Brissett gets his tight ends involved, whether it be Eric Ebron, Jack Doyle, or Mo Alley Cox. I mean, those are guys that were really big, over the last couple seasons with Andrew Luck, but only 2 receptions. I wonder if Brissett is going to be a little bit different, more checkdowns to running backs than looking for tight ends, and obviously utilizing T.Y. Hilton. But I mean, the Colts, the reason they're in the position they are today, even with Brissett there, is because of Chris Ballard. So it's actually nice. And I know when I was working with you down in Tennessee, whenever Ballard was there, I said this is going to be the start of a completely different, Colts than we've seen in the past. Even when Peyton Manning was there, the biggest travesty is that, he didn't have a defense either. And I think if he has better defenses, he wins, maybe 2, maybe 3 Super Bowls with Indianapolis, but he didn't have a defense at the time. And now it's like our defense is coming together. Our offense is looking better, even without Andrew Luck. So I'm excited in this Chris Ballard era. And I'm interested to see if Brissett has a great year. I mean, they're getting him for pennies on the dollar with his new contract, pretty much $15 million a year. And if he doesn't work out, guess what? We've got cap space to go out and maybe draft a young rookie quarterback, or bring in someone else as a free agent or make a trade. So But right now, I'm happy, and even if the Titans blow us out, I'm not ready to call it quits in the season. I mean, last year we started off the season 0-4 and ended up making a playoff. So, but yeah, I mean, there's for the division at least, there's not a bigger week 2 game that you're going to have than this one.
Yeah, and the Titans have back-to-back division games, and with playing you guys and then that other team next week. We actually don't play the Texans until week 15. No, I'm sorry, 14. Week 14.
Y'all do that double turnaround?
Yeah, it's like Texans, another team, and I think I can't remember if there's 2 teams in between or just one, but it's right at the end of the season, and the Texans never stay healthy, or they could be on a roll. I mean, I think it was them also starting. It was either 0-3 last year or the year before that. They went on like a 9-win streak, and ended up winning the division that year. So, it is early. Anything can happen, but it is nice to have. It is nice to be 1-0 going back home.
Can you think of a team though, like the Texans, that missed their window was so small? Remember, they had Matt Schaub as their quarterback, and that was the year that they were really good, and they still missed the playoffs, I believe, at the end of the season. And then just it's like their window closed. As good of a team they had during that, I want to say it was 2014, 2013, around there, 15 maybe the latest, but had such a good team, and then their window just closed in like a year or 2 years. And that's where I think that you're starting to see the league is shifting. And there are teams that have always been good. I mean, the Patriots have been good, obviously, for 20 years. But you're starting to see these people realize that, you got to bring in these young talented players that maybe will not be a household name, and those are going to be the building blocks of your team, of your franchise. It's not about, here's a good example, Antonio Brown. I think even if there's no drama with Antonio Brown at the Raiders and he's starting on Monday night, yes, he's talented, but is he that's a Band-Aid for the Raiders. You're starting to talk about now where, salary cap is a bigger issue, and, keeping people on those rookie contracts, getting the most out of those rookie contracts, and you bring in a couple of star players. I think it's a different league where we do have more star players now, but I think we've seen too where those star players aren't the ones that are winning the Super Bowls. I mean, look, OBJ did not do anything while he was with the Giants. AB did not do anything when he was with the Steelers. It's guys like it's the teams like Patriots where it is more that team approach now. Yes, you have Tom Brady, but Tom Brady is not the one that single-handedly wins them Super Bowls. Maybe against the Falcons, sure, but they've got so many good players around him, and I think you're starting to see where it's now teams are starting to realize I can't just have a couple superstars win me a Super Bowl. It's got to be collective, defense, collective offense, and you don't want average players, but if you can get a solid group of let's call it, if we're saying 5 stars, the best, 3.5, 4 star solid group that plays well, has good team chemistry, and a little bit of luck here and there, and you stay, healthy. You're starting to see where those are the teams that are making deeper runs.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's definitely some players. I mean, some that come to mind on the Titans are Jayon Brown, one of our middle linebackers, who, and if you follow the draft, he was someone to look at, but since then, he had to earn his spot on the starting lineup, and you have someone like, honestly, like I would argue even Logan Ryan, who's won 2 Super Bowls with the Patriots. But, being with the Titans, you could argue the smallest market team in the NFL, players just kind of disappear unless, like Marcus Mariota, who's a name that everybody recognizes, Derrick Henry just from Alabama. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, the Titans are definitely full of those players too. And if they could put something together, make a run for it, I think it'd be good for the NFL, kind of switch it up. And obviously, I would be just off the fucking wall if the Titans made a playoff run. But kind of similar to you with Ballard, our GM John Robinson, J-Rob, he has done so much for this organization, and drafting the right players, and not only the right players but the right positions at the right time. They've done so much for this organization. So, anyways, not really sure why I felt the need to give a shout out to him, but anyways, there
he
it
might be
is.
listening.
Yeah, J Rob, if you're listening, it's okay. Don't
Come on, if you're listening, come on the pod.
come on the
Discuss.
pod. You need to stoop down a little bit to calm down because we're going to keep things raw. We're not going to be super PC about anything. So
Yeah, East Tennessee's number one source for Titans news.
yeah, of course. Well, okay, Lucas. Before we go, quick thoughts on Antonio Brown as far as how many weeks is he going to play before he's not on an NFL team anymore?
Well, I will say just to start off that I did last Saturday before he had been, said he wanted released. All the stuff comes out with that video on YouTube, and I called my buddy. And sports gambling is actually legal in Indiana now. I said, hey, you need to go to the casino and check and see if they have an over/under on how many games Antonio Brown will play. I said 8. If it's 8, I said I don't think he'll play at all for the Raiders. I said give me 0 if they can see what the odds are and give it to me. And sure enough, he has to be released. And now I'd say I would be surprised if Antonio Brown. Well, and because here's the other thing, obviously the sexual assault, the rape came out, allegations against Antonio Brown, but the Patriots have said that he's going to be playing. Typical Patriots, they're the bad guys. I'd say he probably plays over 8 games this season. I would say, if we're not taking into account maybe potential injury, I'd say he will play unless this, takes on more life, because the Patriots are just going to keep playing him. But the whole thing's a debacle. Adam Schefter put it best when he said he's an elite receiver that is quickly playing his way out of getting elite money, or, well, not playing his way, but talking his way out of getting elite money because no one wants him a part of their locker room. I mean, here's the thing. Yes, he's on the Patriots, but if he goes in there and starts acting the way he is and causing drama, he took that video of Mike Tomlin in the locker room a couple years ago. If that starts happening at the Patriots, they will get rid of him. They're not going to put up with it. They want to win, but they're not going to let him get in the way of what they want to do. And I think Tom Brady's, embraced him. But if that starts to happen in his locker room, he's not going to let it happen, and they'll get him out of there. And then I think you're looking at teams probably ending up at a cellar drawer, like the Dolphins. That's where they're going to end up. He's going to end up if he keeps up his antics and keeps causing himself to be a locker room cancer. He's going to go somewhere that just needs talent on their team. They don't care what he does.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Antonio Brown, I agree. Well, did you take that bet as far as 0 games?
He didn't get back to the casino in time, unfortunately.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, that was like, dude, that'd be fucking awesome. You'd win a lot on that one.
Matt, I didn't tell you, but I'm now a millionaire.
Oh, nice. Well, it's nice to have our first millionaire on the podcast. So, first guest and first millionaire. So there you go. That's it's all downhill from here. All downhill from here. I was thinking about going on. Let me get your take. Should I? I was thinking about going on some Facebook pages, some Jacksonville Jaguar Facebook pages, and just shopping around the idea of Skyping someone down there and having them on. And I feel like it's going to be fucking rowdy because I'm going to tell them, look, it's no holds bar, no nothing. And I don't know. What do you think? Who should I? Or rather, what would be your play as far as getting somebody on from that god-awful city?
And if you want to bring on a Jags fan, I've got a buddy that works down there in their marketing department. I'm sure he can find you somebody that's ready to chew your head off and beat you into a pulp. I mean,
let me talk to him. I'll get him fired. I'll get him so riled up he gets fired from his job. How about that?
Well, he's a Bengals fan from this area, but he just works in their marketing department. And I don't think you can really get a Bengals fan riled up. They just lay down and just let themselves get rolled over at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, he seems to make some really good decisions in life.
Well, what I will say, though, is if you're going to go on there and you stir up some shit, just make sure that you get somebody that's still going to have a good conversation with you, because at the end of the day, that's what the listeners are here for.
They don't want to hear me just go batshit crazy.
I mean, if we're going to do that, we want to get video crews in there. I want a steel cage death match.
I'm okay with that. We could probably make that happen.
For those that are listening, Matt and I almost did have a challenge where we were going to fight each other in a boxing match if we hit a sales goal when we were with the team down in Tennessee. But unfortunately, we did not hit our sales goal that month. And so we were both spared the embarrassment of having to try to throw punches.
Yeah, and I know you guys can't see our physiques at this point, but I don't think
Matt looks like he's about to have a baby. He's in his third trimester.
You could say I'm not in my prime, but Luke. I mean, I would have kicked Lucas's ass. I think the anger of not towards you, but the anger of the thought of losing to you would have put me over the edge for sure.
Well, I've got a spoiler alert. While I was lifting weights and like running around the track to get ready for the fight, you were doing yoga. I'm not sure yoga helps out with boxing, but hey, if you're gonna have that peace of mind.
When the fuck did I do yoga?
I was here. My sources over at the gym were telling me you were over there like doing your little feng shui stuff. But
okay, I gotcha. All right, well, Lucas, good to have you on, man. Hopefully this is a regular thing. We'll see. I don't know when we play next. At some point later in the season, have you on. Maybe have a unique kind of one-off episode as well, having you on the pod. So always good talking to you, man. And go Titans, am I right?
Yeah, go Colts. Colts strong.
Well, Lucas, as we finish here things off on the pod, every episode, everyone just remember, if you're not first, that's okay, because neither are the Jags. Peace. See you, Lucas.
See ya.
All right.